Good morning, Syndicate members. I'm here with Trevor, and we have a really interesting talk for you today. We're going to be talking about crafting the perfect pitch for a music library. Trevor is obviously a music library. He's building up a catalog himself, and they are obviously in the process of getting clients to accept their music, placements, and all that good stuff. So Trevor is no stranger to accepting demos. He was also really sort of the brains behind a previous music library that he was working with, and he was in charge of all basically. Everybody who wanted to work with him, they had to go through Trevor, and so he was the number one guy that you would have to, first of all, press to move on to maybe other layers of the company to get accepted and all that good stuff. So Trevor obviously has a lot of experience in this and sort of weeding out people who are serious from people who are just sort of looking for a quick buck, or they don't really know what they're doing and they're kind of just spamming their music all over the place. So we're going to talk about basically maybe like the top 3 things, first of all, that you should avoid, you should really never do, because these are some of those sort of real bad, they're just turnoffs for a music library. They don't want to see it. It really makes them kind of prejudiced against you from day one. You might have great music, but if you present yourself with these sort of bad mistakes, it might completely just shoot your chances of being considered seriously. And then we'll follow up with some of the better practices, some of the things that are sort of the rock star things that you can do to really separate yourself from the crowd, to maybe really seem a lot more serious that you're really in this for the long haul, okay? But before we get started, just a quick little congratulations to Glaucio. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I'm so sorry if I butchered that, buddy. But you obviously just got accepted to your first music library. I just posted that in the group just to kind of give you a shout out and to encourage everybody else. It's obviously to kind of, I want to really celebrate you guys when these successes come, but I also want to encourage the rest of you that maybe have been getting rejection notices or you haven't submitted yet, that this stuff really does work, and people in this group really are moving forward in their licensing careers. And here's some, a great example right here in front of you. And this week, actually, I think I've gotten 3 or 4 different emails, just like what Glaucio said, that they were submitting for the first time, and within like 48 hours, they got accepted. So this is happening, guys. It's not a dream. It's not some I think a lot of us, when we were in bands and producers for the first couple of years of our careers, we thought getting a record deal was this like dream that could never come true. It's in the licensing business. It is an amazing thing when you first get accepted. And trust me, I remember first getting my first check and getting my first contract. And yeah, it makes you feel like a dream is coming true. But it's not really that uncommon, and it's very achievable. It's very doable as long as you guys are putting the right kinds of music out there and approaching the right way. Okay, so I hope you guys are encouraged by these sort of success stories that I share with you. And that's what we're going to talk about today, to encourage you guys to keep going with your submissions and to approach these music libraries the right way. So Trevor, if we could, let's maybe hone in on the top 3 mistakes that you've really seen in your career when people are submitting music to either your previous libraries or your current library. What are some, let's nail it down to maybe the top 3 that you can do that would really turn you off and make you maybe not even listen to their music?
Yeah, I think you and I even talked a little bit about this in the past before, but like some of the like main mistakes, like really long emails is really frustrating sometimes, where it's just like they're trying to give me their whole backstory and all this stuff and a bunch of credits and stuff. And like, I don't have time for that. Like, and not just me, right? Like a library, just doesn't have time to read these long emails from like 30 people in a day. Like there's not one person that's their job. And so they kind of got to get it out of the way and go. And so I even found myself like just marking them like, okay, if I have time, maybe I'll go back and look through this, but I'm going to go through the ones that are just like, hey, this is me. This is what I do. Here's a couple links. Like, thanks. Like those are a little more like, okay, that's my pace. I can just check it out. Yes or no, move on.
Before you move on, I think that's a great point. Let me just real quick point out, this is why I've included, for those of you guys watching, the submission templates with the music library directory that came with your music or your master course under week 2's video. Download it, use it. Okay, exactly what Trevor just pointed out is why I've included those, because they're each 2 sentences long with a link. Okay, and so if you're really not knowing how to craft these emails and how to get their attention and how to do it in a very concise way, those were crafted to exactly do what Trevor just said: not waste their time, not spam them with your entire life's history and career's history, but immediately try to show seriousness, consideration for them individually as a company, that you're obviously not spamming a bunch of companies. You need to include their particular information in there. And you also need to have something about why your music is relevant to their current catalog. So those submission templates are proven. They've actually worked. And I've gotten, success stories just like I had today with people who have actually literally copied and pasted that, put in their information, put in the library's information, and then obviously inserted their link to their demo or album, whatever they're showcasing, and they get accepted. Okay, that's why those are there, is to take out the thinking for you guys. It doesn't have to be rocket science. And just what Trevor said, you certainly don't want to spam people. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves, is opening an email and somebody sending me, just paragraphs, like an entire PDF book. And it's like, it's really actually kind of insulting that you are demanding that much time from somebody, right? Remember, these are busy people. They have a lot of submissions. They have a lot, not only submissions from new people, but they're also busy getting clients, getting placements, doing paperwork, organizing metadata. They have a website to host. I mean, it is a very busy thing to be able to run a library. So you need to be considerate of that by sending your email very concisely. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Number 2.
Yeah, so I don't know why this is happening right now. My internet keeps like going on and off. Like,
oh yeah, you're definitely just cut out for a second there. You're totally frozen up right now.
I'm here. I think. I don't know why it keeps doing it. It's just like on and off really quickly. I don't know, but I'll try and keep talking. Hopefully it doesn't do it again. So I got a little bit of what you were saying, but you were going into a point that I was going to end up going into, which is the like your email unique to the person that you're emailing. But I'll go back to the don'ts. So number 2, don't. Definitely don't send like files, because some people use Gmail, some people use their own like website service. Like there's a lot of, and space is limited. And like, I mean, I'm on my phone a lot, and I don't want to download a whole MP3 or 5 MP3s or a WAV file or whatever. So links are perfect, because links can be saved, they can be shared, they can be like, there's a lot you can do with just a link. Links go places, links go to your page. So if I click on one of your tracks that you're submitting, I now can look at the rest of you. I can go to you. If you're like, a lot of people do SoundCloud, and your SoundCloud usually has Facebook, and it has your whatever, like all your other things. And if I'm like interested, I can like look you up a little more and like, oh, he's all like, he also does this kind of music, whatever. So links are like, I'd be very, very surprised if somebody wanted files. And then the third thing, the third don't, I guess, would be.
While you're thinking about that, let me say something about number 2. So this, I definitely always sort of default to that as well. And I've taught you guys in the master course, in probably every video I've ever put together about this. Never just assume they want your MP3s or your WAV files or a huge Dropbox zip folder, unless, of course, this is the big disclaimer, unless they specifically request it, and unless they specifically say, we want this. Now, as I've reviewed some music libraries lately, I'm looking at some of their submission guidelines, and some of them actually do say, send us MP3s. Okay, throw out what I'm saying, throw out what Trevor's saying. Obviously, if you're trying to cater to this particular library, their submission process is always king. Okay, we are irrelevant at that point. You only want to do what they say. And I've definitely recommended some libraries that'll say, I think one of the ones I did last week was like, don't send us anything less than 6 songs, and send us MP3s. So they literally are saying, like, zip up a folder with at least 6 songs, and we want MP3s. We want you to actually send us the files. We don't want links. So if they're not saying that they're specifically requesting those links or whatever, and they're asking specifically for your MP3s, then send them what they want. If there is nothing mentioned, right, you go to their website and there's really nothing specific about what they're really wanting from a submission or anything like that, then I would say it's easy and very safe to assume, do not send any files, okay? Just send them links, because just like Trevor said, you can share those things. They can be easily forwarded. And then if it does link to your website, which I do recommend, it makes you look pretty professional. But even if it just goes to your SoundCloud or something else, there could be other tracks that they can check out and go, you know what, yeah, we checked out the ones you sent, but we looked at other stuff you have, and we actually kind of like this. Is this available? So you sort of open yourself up to being considered for more possibility. Although, I don't know, maybe Trevor, you have more insight on this. Last that I was checking in on SoundCloud, there were still a lot of compression issues with their uploads, and music sounded funky, which is not like, I guess, a huge issue when somebody's just previewing your music. But lately I've been telling people to kind of steer clear of it. So I don't know if you have any updates on that, but I usually am now telling people just Dropbox things, to send them links. But probably for me, I would say the best way to do it is create a website, create your own personalized website, and have a playlist on either right on the homepage, or you can create a separate page within your website that's like, John Doe Music / whatever EDM album or music licensing. You can have a sort of a whatever title you want to have for that, and send them directly to one website that has a playlist of all the tracks that are available to be licensed. Don't send them to a playlist where 9 out of 10 of them are already in an exclusive library, and or all of them are in another exclusive library. And you're just kind of teasing them and saying, hey, this is what you maybe could have had in another dimension. I mean, that doesn't really do you much good. They might be really excited about it, but then when they find they can't have any of it, it kind of frustrates them a little bit because they wanted it right away. So send them music that can be immediately licensed. But anyways, go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, you took my number three. That was gonna be my number three. Is don't send me things that I'm like that I can't have. Because before I get to that, I'll get to the link thing. Is SoundCloud. I think I'm pretty understanding, and I think a lot of people are of like if you have a SoundCloud link and the sound isn't like 100%, because I think they drop the quality a lot. But I understand what I'm hearing. Like I still know like what I'm listening to and the quality and stuff. And I don't think that that's a huge like issue for most people, but I do think don't settle for that if you can and should go that one extra step like Jesse was just explaining is have your own site, little like the however you want to design it so that it looks professional with just a page that's just submissions or whatever. And that looks way more professional than like here's my SoundCloud link. And I don't think it makes a huge difference as far as like the audio part for the person just listening, but it does look better like on the surface. And then as far as the point you made, I was going to make it too, is unless you're a vocalist, that's the only time. Like if the library is looking for a vocalist, like showing off your like, oh, this is what I can do, that's usually fine. But when you're like a producer and you're like, look, here's a whole bunch of stuff that you can't have, like it then tells me like, okay, so I still have to wait. Like I still have to then like do some work or get some time before I actually get stuff from you. And libraries right now are in a frantic. I know because I'm one of them. And libraries are in a frantic of just like content, music, yeah, everywhere. So if I'm like considering somebody, I don't like a lot of times I don't want to wait. Like I want to hear what they have and go, okay, that's great. Or okay, you have a couple I like, get me a couple more and let's go, So I think the non-available music is a very common mistake, but it's understandable too, because you would think like, oh, let me just show you what I can do, but you got to kind of come in a little more prepared than that as far as like.
Yeah, and you also got to remember that I would say, maybe Trevor, you disagree, but I don't think any music libraries are in the business of artist development. I mean, they can definitely coach and they can definitely help you get some feedback, but they're usually not going out there going, we got to find that next big hit artist and then we'll coach them over the course of the next 5 years to make. No, that's not their business. Their business is give me music that's ready to go. Like I need a product. I need something I can sell. Okay. So showing off like, this is what I could do for you in the future. It's not like, and this is why I always have this caveat, because that's really how I got started. I didn't have music ready to go when I got accepted by the first couple of libraries. Actually, well, I had maybe 1 or 2 tracks that were ready to go, but a lot of times I got signed because they're like, they liked what they heard. I had something ready to go. And then it was just like, okay, well, you know what? Let's put together an album of this kind of music that you do. Go ahead and just send us every track that you get it done. We have some notes for you. Great. And that's kind of how I got started. And then, of course, I proved myself. So that was the big thing, is that I didn't just do 2 tracks, flake out on them, and just get busy, and then not feel like it and then go away. Because if you do that after you've gotten in the door, like you're not getting back in that door. Like they're either you're not going to get back in at all, or they're going to put you in a category. And I'm sure Trevor might have people in his roster like this, where you have your sort of core group that are like, all right, these are my guys that like, I need a track tomorrow. They're ready to go. And then you have the secondary group, which was kind of like, yeah, I get 1 or 2 tracks from them a month. So, I'm not going to let go of them, but like, they're not somebody that's just like 100% into this thing, but I don't want to let them go because they have some really good, decent stuff. And then there's probably the third group, which is, I'm not really going to reach out to them. Like if they come to me with a track, great, I'll consider it, but I'm really not including them on my emails, or if I have a custom gig or something like that. At least that's what I've definitely seen and been told from a lot of libraries that I've worked with, that usually I'm on their sort of short list. And then they also have other people that, whatever. It's just kind of like, they're just not as active. So you almost, I think I just watched the movie Fight Club. And I think there was that quote is coming back to me, where it's just like, you determine your own level of involvement, which is very true. Like you really do determine how involved you want to be with the libraries that you're working with. It's really not so much up to them. It's up to you. You get to decide, I'm ready to go. I'm hungry. Great. Even if they're only including you on 1 opportunity every 3 months, be extremely thankful and happy and giving of your time and your energy to those opportunities, because it will stick out in their minds of like, well, this producer is always coming to us when we need him. So
Yeah, that layout, that's funny. That layout is everywhere I've gone or like worked like with or for other libraries. That's always the like power structure. Is there's like those dudes that are like the like the core team, and then there's like the second string, and then there's like the, oh, maybe we'll get something from them, but I'm not holding my breath kind of thing. So that's pretty funny. um so yeah, so those I guess are the three things you want to transition into.
Yeah, those are the three ones. So let's talk about things that are really smart and some
Yeah.
ways you can really stand out. And again, I guess sort of like framing this a bit, you basically get a lot of times one email and one demo to really kind of show yourself to a company. And that's probably all you're ever going to get. Okay. So it's really important that you don't just throw stuff out there without really knowing that you have the best possible chances of getting accepted. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But Trevor's going to talk about some of the things that over the years have really impressed him, really make his life easier, and really obviously make him go, okay, I'm definitely clicking on this link, and I definitely want to entertain signing this person. Whether or not he can or can't or can use the music or whatever, that's obviously one of those things that each library is going to have different needs at a certain given time. That kind of stuff is out of our control. But there are definitely things that can put you on their sort of short list of considerations. So why don't we start with those?
Yeah. Man, there's so many little things, because like the ground floor nowadays is like quality. There are so many good music like producers or musicians or composers or whatever you want to call yourself. There's so many good ones that's like the ground floor, and then all the little things you do after that is kind of what sets you apart, because everybody's good. Like I've noticed, especially like nowadays, because everybody's making EDM. Like every EDM producer is really good, and so it's like, well, which one do I pick? Which one is the one that like catches my eye, kind of thing? And there's so many little things. I mean, one of the things that I've seen in the past is it's all different genres do this, like producers from different genres, but something where they've done, where I can tell they've done some research, right? They're not just like, they don't have a copy and paste email thing that just says, hey, to whom it may concern. And then they kind of go like, go like they do the same thing. And I can tell like, oh, this was copy and pasted to probably 5 different libraries today. I've
Or even
noticed that.
worse, they keep the CC there, and you can see that it's gone out to like 600
Oh,
libraries.
that'd be horrible.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'd be really bad. They don't even BCC it.
I get those
But
all the time.
yeah, that's really funny. So really understanding like who you're pitching to. I mean, we do this with job interviews, right? Like we go to into McDonald's or like wherever we're trying to get a job, and we like know, okay, this is the company. Like I need to kind of kiss their ass a little bit by knowing who they are and what they want from me. And it's the same with this. There's some libraries that you just may not fit in, and I'm sure you go through this in your Edge thing as well. There are libraries that you just may not fit in, and so you maybe save those as like fail safes, like, oh, I'll pitch them later, but there's these ones that I know that like my music works for. They're making albums like it, I can fit in. And also one of the things that kind of got me in the door with some in the past is looking at what they don't have and looking at what they may need soon are two really big ones. Things that they don't have that are still in the realm of what they do. Like if it's a library that does like EDM and hip hop and pop and stuff, and you're like, oh, I do orchestral, like that may not work. But if they have EDM, pop, and whatever, but they don't have Latin hip hop or they don't have Latin EDM, maybe you can come in and squeeze your way in and go, look, like it's still in your realm, but you don't have it and it's popping right now. And it's the same with something that maybe they haven't done in a long time. There are a lot of libraries that will basically redo an album. Like you could look at a lot of libraries and they have something something two, right? Something something three. Like though that same album once every like year or 2 years or something. And if you look and they haven't done that, like they haven't done like West Coast hip hop in like 4 years. That like maybe it's just out of demand, or maybe they just haven't done it. Like that's actually a bad example, but like there are some that are you can tell like, oh, maybe they would want another one of these. And so you can kind of get yourself in that way of like refilling a need that they had and that they had at one point, and it seemed like it worked. And also understanding their credits too. Like if you can do enough research, you could probably find out whose libraries clients really are, like truly. So like if you go through their like recent credits or their Twitter or whatever, and you can kind of like look through like, oh, they got it in this show and this show and this show, and all three of those shows are owned by this company, you now know who their client is. And then you can kind of cater to, okay, that client does all of these shows, you can kind of mention that in your email, like, hey, I see that you got placements, with this, this show. I have music that fits these show, like really cater to what their like day to day is. That stuff I think is a really big deal. I haven't seen much of it. And when I do, it's actually really impressive. And usually like that kind of dedication also goes with like they do that with their music too. So it's kind of, they go hand in hand. Um, that's something that I haven't seen much of, but I think would be really cool for people to do, because libraries are, they don't, the people out there, or I mean, myself included, they don't want to go through the work of, or it would be nice if somebody did a lot of that work for them of separating, putting together and going, okay, music, client, everything in the middle. If that was kind of already done in a way for them, then it's, easier.
Great. And then finally, I remember we had talked about this, I think in a previous video, was the idea of having an album like done with a concept, even maybe with like a title idea, or even if you wanted to go like the extra credit route, having an actual like design for it or whatever. So talk about that, because we talked about it a little bit already in this video, but because it's one of the most common questions I get, which is how many songs do I have to have before I send to a library? Now, I always say 2 to 3 because I personally have gotten myself into libraries with just 2 to 3 tracks. However, I do believe these days, since it's getting more and more competitive and more producers are getting into this industry, I'm probably going to start stripping in that out of my master course and out of my videos and replacing it with don't even get started until you have a full album. Because I think in some ways that is going to be the one thing that'll basically, if you want to get started today and not gradually get built up, or even potentially not get a library excited because you don't have a lot of music, I'm thinking I'm going to start telling people like, listen, if you don't have a full solid 10 or 12 tracks in that particular, in one particular genre, right? Varied emotional takes though, and emotion and ranges of styles within that genre. But if you don't have a full album ready to go with a concept and some sort of a way to really market it as sort of a cereal box, like on the aisle, like ready to go, ready to be put into somebody's cart and checked out with, it's usually not really a great way to get, you usually shouldn't get started, especially I think that's happening more and more these days. But what's your take on, the full album versus, a 2 or 3 song sort of EP thing?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I would say that I think that that would be a good idea to put that as like the new norm. Um, I have seen anybody successful that I've seen, like people who are really have been in this and are doing this like now a lot too, is the album thing, is basically going to a company and being like, your job is already done, like beginning to end. Like there's so many little things that you can even like find on their website. You go to a library and you kind of do a checklist, right? You go, okay, album cover, alternate versions, what kind of versions do they have? Do they have cut downs like 60s and 30s? What do they have when they finish the album? And why don't I just do that myself? And or like me and like two buddy composers or whatever, because that's actually I think a really efficient way to do it, is to come up with a concept and then know, okay, me and a friend or me and two other friends can do this album together, and then we are going to try and basically sell it to a library. Done. And you also kind of have to, because you don't know which library you're going to, so you kind of have to look at like common things of knowing what you're going to be getting into. Some libraries don't do 30s, some libraries do, like that kind of stuff. So kind of look at it all and go, okay, we'll just do all of it, and then whoever wants what, when we send it to them. Because I've seen some very successful producers do this a lot recently, like where they'll go to a library and they'll have they'll basic Photoshop skills, and like Photoshop templates nowadays can get you, a library cover really easy. And all you do is change the text, maybe the colors a little bit, and you're done. Unless, you go to the library and say, hey, look, we have a cover in mind. But like some libraries, they do theirs like uniform. And so you just kind of can't like copy it. But most of them nowadays, they're just like, if it fits the music and it's good, we'll just throw our, name on it. Done deal. And yeah, if you come to them, like you even go a step further, every library uses a database. Learn the databases, because those databases have metadata formats. And if you know those metadata formats and you can get pretty good at those metadata formats, like metadata, cover, cut downs, mixes, versions, and the music completely, like you have done their job. Like I've actually seen anybody do all of those things. I've seen some of them, right? Some people are like, look, I can do the data, but you can go to, I don't know if they allow you to have their format, but you might be able to email them. But there's all the different databases. There's SoundMiner, Harvest, Source Audio, I know there's like tons of them. I just can't think of them right now. Some companies built their own. Megatrax uses their own that they built. I think uh, I don't know. There's a bunch. You can do the research on it as well. But you either ask them, "What's your template? Can I get it?" They'll usually send it to you, and then you have it. And then when you go to pitch to a library, you can get, look, I know that you use SoundMiner. Our data is sound minored, and our audio is ready to go. Like all you have to do is say yes. We send you everything all at once, and your job is done. Um, that I've seen somewhat, and it's very successful.
Yeah, that's really powerful for sure. And doing all that research, yes, any sort of angle like that, you can sort of say, I'll do the work for you, or basically let you guys know I'm not just some, newbie off the street walking into this industry, even if you actually are. But if you're talking in these kind of terms, it just signals to them this is a serious person who really wants to do music licensing. They're not like, trying to sell beats and then they just stumbled into this and then they're going to go back to selling beats. Like they can see with those that even just using that kind of language that you're a serious person. Now, even if you, because some libraries, they keep their stuff private. You can't find anything. You can't even hear their music. You can't see anything. Do the best research you can, though. And then what I've done is sort of always put as a sort of addition on once I send a link to here's the music, here's the tracks that are ready to go. There's always usually a little line afterwards to say, and the stems, alts, and metadata can be supplied to you ASAP upon acceptance. So you're just also letting them know, I don't really know what you need, but you just let me know what you need. And these are basically all sitting in my sessions ready to be bounced. And they can be done to you within like 24 hours, 48 hours. So it's basically just as good as it's already done for you. You're basically giving them that sort of like, hey, take a listen, consider this. And if you say yes, I will do the work for you. That's kind of what you're saying. Like once you give me these templates, you give me the information you need, you let me know what kind of format you need. If they need waves, AIFs, what bit rate, what all that kind of stuff. Once you sort of give me your specifics, I will do all that work for you. So that's equally as attractive. And I think if Trevor got a submission like that, both, I mean, obviously the work done, yes, let's go now. But even if the work wasn't done, but you're just letting them know, like, I know there's going to be work that needs to be done and I'm prepared to get it done for you very quickly. It's the same thing. It looks just as attractive. So it shows that sort of consideration and that knowledge that you have about the behind the scenes of how this industry works. And I think kind of summarizing what Trevor was saying is think about the library and whatever you're submitting to, think about them specifically, who their clients are, what kind of music they have in their catalog. Talk about them and their needs. If you're focusing always on them, you're kind of demonstrating, I know my place in this business. It's not about me. It's not about like I'm the star of the show. It's really about the library's needs, who their clients are, if you want to get the most amount of placements and get into the door. The last question I want to have is, and I was kind of going through this with some of my Edge videos, was, I'd pull up these libraries and I'd listen. I'd say like, okay, like for example, one of them, I think I said their EDM pop stuff was a little bit dated. It sounded like it was like, listen to this stuff, guys. It's like 90s, early 2000s. And also it's just kind of like squeaky, whiny, noisy music. Like this stuff doesn't sound good or feel good to me. There's a lot of it though. And it doesn't seem like they have like the sort of 2010 plus like modernized version of this kind of EDM music. So I'm recommending guys, you submit to this particular library with this sound. So now obviously I'm like, I don't want to disparage the composer because, whatever, people are composing there at their different levels. But if you, let's say you as a library here, you have, I'm sure, your core group of guys and girls that you go to. Now, if somebody comes in and they have just crazy EDM music and it's like 10 out of 10, it's actually on par, maybe even better than anybody you have in your current circle. What is your thought process there? Do you think like, well, I'll just add them and they'll just be a great addition? Do you start thinking, well, who's my weak link and maybe I need to let them go? Like, what is your process when you get like somebody that's like top of the notch and they're actually better or at least on par or better? Let's go better. They're actually better than who you currently have in your current like close roster.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty sure every company has a different deal on this because like this is a very kind of probably a personal way of doing it, right? So for me, I feel like I would never really be apprehensive about it because I I I have this kind of like, okay, new badass comes in, everybody else needs to rise to the challenge, and and if they don't, like that's to me, then I'm like, oh well, that's too bad. Like I feel bad, but I'm also like I know you can. Like I don't think you would really be here if you couldn't. So if you don't, it's kind of on you in a way, because I already believe, like, in a team that I have, kind of the team that I have already, I believe that they are like really good. And if somebody comes in that's even better than them, I have like the confidence that they can all get there. And so if they don't, like, I feel like it's on them, and I'm not going to be too mad or too like stressed about it. And it also, at the end of the day, I think makes them better, makes the catalog better. Like all around, I feel like that's a good thing as like a catalog owner. Um, and so I definitely wouldn't be hesitant about it. I do think that there are some, though, that I've seen, some libraries that I've seen where when they get new people that, like, I've seen where they'll get new people that have better credits, but maybe not better music. I don't know why, but this it doesn't make any sense. But and they'll do that, and then they'll kind of push out somebody else, and like that doesn't make sense to me. I feel like the competition within the company like makes them, or within the team, makes the most sense, because then you're constantly getting better together. And the way that I've set it up in my team, there's a lot of communication between everybody, and it seems like it actually does do that. Like, there are like people who I've seen in the very short time that I've had a team, have gotten better just because of the other people they're around. And so I think that it's a good thing. I think that for the team, if you set up an environment that way, that I think it's a great thing, and hopefully other companies know that.
Yeah. And that's one of those reasons why I think, the best bet you can have is making sure you're submitting tracks that are on par or better than what you're hearing in their current catalog, to make sure that you are that hot commodity that comes on board. And however they deal with that, you want to be that sort of that badass that kind of shows up. But if you're with a catalog, and just like Trevor was saying, when somebody else comes along and it's like, dude, this guy is just blowing it up, it can feel intimidating. You can feel like, man, am I going to lose my spot? But just like you said, that's really great for you to have that incentive to be like, well, I don't want to be left behind. And actually, sometimes, and I think a lot of you guys in the syndicate can probably attest to this, that your potential raises when you're just exposed to a higher level, right? So, like, sometimes if you're not even aware of higher production music and how that exists and that it does exist, sometimes we kind of get fat and lazy. We don't really want to improve ourselves. We don't want to challenge ourselves. But the minute that we get a little uncomfortable because somebody's just a little bit above us and showing us the potential of what you can do, it just stirs that competitive nature in us to want to get to that level. So in some ways, a little uncomfortable in the short run, but in the long run, like you said, it can really improve everybody's production, because it makes everybody want to step their game up. And I think sometimes just seeing that higher quality of production makes you realize, wow, like, I don't have time to be lazy. I don't have time to just be, putting up my templates and cranking out the same stuff that I've always been doing. I got to rethink how I'm producing, or try some new sounds, or try some new templates, or whatever it is, to try to get my my mixes a little bit louder, or my tracks to hit a little bit heavier, or whatever the issue is. You feel that you're kind of slacking now from the competition. And I've definitely seen it in my 10 years in this business. Is this, the rate of quality is just doing this every single year, because of technology and because of the exposure of this industry. There's more and more people getting into it, and there's more and more incredible plugins and software programs and libraries, sample libraries, and DAWs, and home recording equipment that's just blowing this thing up through the roof. So and just like you said, high quality is very common. It's really actually not that hard to come across great music. That's really not that impressive. But having that sort of professionalism and that long-term commitment to it. That's why I always say, when I congratulate you guys on getting accepted, I'm like, that's great, and I'm really applauding you guys, but don't get ahead of yourself, because this is where the real work begins. You really haven't done anything yet in this business. Like, that was step one of 1,000. So really now is when you need to build your brand up with your library, and that's by showing up consistently, giving them, over delivering ahead of schedule, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how you really have to make sure that you stay relevant in this business. It's not just about, well, and I get these emails a lot, like, well, I have my music in 3 libraries, but like nothing's happening. All right. So what's going on with those 3 libraries that you're not, like, why are you even approaching me if you've already got 3 libraries that you're working with? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. You should be like almost barely able to keep up with 3 different libraries if you're, if you have a high reputation with their team, right? Sounds like you're that sort of in that third category of like the whatever people that don't really contribute. If you have your music in 3 libraries and you're not really getting placements, and you're so kind of bored with your time that you're trying to approach me to find out how to get new libraries, it seems like, well, maybe there's something that needs to be fixed with who you're currently working with to get yourself, back on the horse a little bit. So Trevor, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the time and the insight and the knowledge. I know everybody else will for sure. And yeah, I think this is going to be very useful for those of you watching that have not gotten placed yet, or maybe you've just kind of fallen asleep a little bit. You need a little kick in the butt to get back on the horse. So any final words of wisdom? before we go?
Yeah, just a quick point. We this entire time we haven't really talked about music, and I think that there's a reason to that, and that there's so much outside of the music that's just as important, if not maybe even more important. Um, and so I think we focus a little too much on music sometimes, where it's like, oh, my music is so good. It's like all this other stuff that you and I just talked about is just as, if not more important. Like, try to remember that for sure.
That's a really good point. Yeah, we didn't really talk about it at all, other than the fact that, just make sure you research who you're sending to and be honest. It's brutally honest and it hurts sometimes, but sometimes you got to say, you know what, my music is at a 6 and their music is at a 9. I'm not ready, and don't submit if you're feeling that way. If you're just like, I don't know, I'm not really there. Why would you submit and sabotage yourself if you're not really there? Take the time, keep practicing, keep producing, keep doing it. Okay. This was never a sprint. It was always a marathon. So don't feel that because you have to wait a couple of months or 6 months or even a year to wait until you're ready to go. That's not a stupid thing to do, is to wait until you're ready to go. Obviously, take advantage of any open review licensing opportunities you get here in this group to get that feedback. And obviously the tutorials, you guys know all that. That's what you're here for, is to get all that kind of stuff. But you got to be, it's one of those things. I think it was in my definitely one of my master course videos where I said, like, it's one of the toughest thing to do, but you got to be honest with where you are. Like, you got to just know that, like, all right, my mixes are not there yet, or my music sounds like it's from 1985 or whatever it is. Like, you got to be able to do that. And it's really sometimes a sort of a, taking a red pill kind of a moment here in the group, because most of us, our friends and family, have just said, hey, your music's great. This is all, oh, I could hear that on a car commercial tomorrow. I can hear this. And, they're not bad people for trying to encourage you, but you've been living in the blue pill world where you thought that you were already there. And then when you get into a group like this, it's like, oh, crap, I have a lot of work to do. And that, I take a lot of that abuse from my email of people like not appreciating that kind of feedback or that kind of, but surprisingly, actually, the majority of you actually do appreciate that kind of honesty. And it hurts and it stings, and it's like getting slapped for the first time or getting like a bucket of cold water thrown at you for the first time. But eventually you realize after a couple of weeks or a month later, you're like, I'm really glad I went through that sort of process of kind of waking up to where I really was. So I can now fix it, because I really wasn't there. And if you're going through life and you're ignorant and arrogant, those are the two worst things you can have in succession with each other, and thinking that you're ready to go and you're getting submitted. Because then what happens is you submit to libraries, you get rejected, and what happens? Well, it's their fault, obviously. These are a bunch of jerks who can't see talent right in front of their nose. And like, you get bitter, right? And you become that sort of like bitter, just crinky kind of old person that just doesn't, even if you're young in age, you're just old in your mind, like you're really thinking about everybody's out to get you and everybody just hates you, and it's always their problem, right? It was never you had no responsibility in it. Trust me, you don't want to live a life like that. You don't have a mind. It's a very poisonous mindset. You will drive away productive people from your life so quickly, and you will attract all the worst kinds of people into your life. So we are very good in this group at repelling that kind of nonsense and really just attracting people that are willing to take ownership and responsibility. I mean, you can choose one or the other, right? Success or excuses. You can have all the excuses you want, but you can kiss all that success goodbye. It's really just a choice. You got to choose one or the other. So thank you so much, Trevor. Appreciate your time today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Thanks for having me, man.